the most impossible rescue in the history of human spaceflight, and the astronauts will not only have to take to the skies in a rudimentary vehicle on Mars, they'll also have to dock successfully with a spacecraft more than 6,000 kilometers away from them. Meanwhile, the eyes of the world are on the rescue because the man, Paul, has been stranded on Mars for 560 days and his old face has aged him almost 10 years. But fortunately, his teammates did not abandon him, and after more than 200 days of traveling, the spacecraft finally reached the high-altitude orbit of Mars. But if the ship landed on the surface of Mars, there wouldn't be enough fuel left to get everyone back to Earth. So Paul would have to pilot the vehicle himself to Mars to dock with the spacecraft. In order to break the gravitational pull of Mars, Paul removed all the heavy windshields to minimize the weight of the craft and put canvas around the hatch to reduce some of the wind resistance. But as the craft got faster and faster, all of Paul's canvas shields were blown away. At this moment, he was not only facing his own powerful overweight condition, but also the acceleration of 100 meters per second towards space. Even if Paul's will to live is strong, he cannot withstand the human body cannot withstand the speed of a moment. Paul fell into a fainting state. At this time, the captain of the docking team, no matter how much he called Paul, the other party never responded. So we can only anxiously wait for Paul to wake up as soon as possible, and the booster also began to separate. However, the speed of the vehicle reached 42 meters per second, making the docking extremely difficult. And now everyone did not know what to do. At that moment, Paul woke up from his fainting spell, and with a few broken ribs in his chest, he couldn't care less about the pain, because the speed of the docking would soon cause him to crash into the spacecraft. Paul wanted to poke a hole in his suit and use the leaking oxygen as a booster to ditch the vehicle and head for the spacecraft. But the captain thinks it's too risky. If Paul can't steer the ship, he'll drift forever in the darkness of space, suffocating. But it's the only way to do it. In order to meet Paul in a more stable manner, the captain made a bold decision to have the crew build a miniature bomb to blow a gap in the ship so that the gases inside would create a reverse thrust to keep the ship as still as possible. This would reduce the relative speed between the two ships to 12 meters per second. However, although the speed was reduced, the distance between the two sides was still more than 300 meters. So the captain tied a rope and intended to go to pick up Paul himself. But the captain soon realized that his rope could not reach Paul's position. Paul decided to risk his life, and with a sharp dagger he pierced his suit, and as the gas flowed out, Paul almost lost control of his direction. After adjusting his position, Paul started to move in the direction of the captain like the Iron Man, but his speed was too high. Paul could not hold on to the captain's hand and flew towards his back. At this time all the people pinched a sweat. Critical moment, Paul touched the rope to reduce his speed a little bit to down. In this way, the captain and Paul, too desperately in the darkness of space slowly approaching, finally succeeded in completing the rescue mission. At this moment, the people in the center of the base were all excited when they heard the news. And after being trapped on Mars for more than a year, Paul lived to see his compatriots. And this miracle of Mars rescue will forever be in the history of the Earth Space Agency.